I was in my mid-30s, moved to Merced to try and survive. Got a place that I thought I could afford, realized really quick that there was no work in this small Central Valley town. Got myself commuting to Sacramento every day. 2 teenage daughters, left home alone. And in the midst of all this, I'm dating an alcoholic boyfriend. So at the time, instead of trying to help him or fix the problem, you give in. It's easier to become an alcoholic with him than it is to help him prevail. So in the middle of the night, I hear my dog barking. My dog barks, wakes me up, and I see that it's barking at my vehicle. So I go out and check my car. Meanwhile, my 2 daughters decided they were gonna sneak out and steal my car. Look in my vehicle, and there's all their stuff. Their go-out clothes, their high heels, their makeup. They didn't know I wasn't feeling well. I hadn't been feeling well for weeks, but I didn't take it into account that I had to take care of myself in order to take care of everyone else. So I grab my keys, I go back to bed. All of a sudden, 4 o'clock in the morning, I wake up and I have to go pick him up in another town in San Jose. And I'm heading out, and I'm in a town I really don't know. Merced's in the middle of the country, so there's not a whole lot around. Get on the road. I'm driving. I had to pull over because I'm in pain. I started throwing up. I was in so much pain that I couldn't see straight. I couldn't function. I'm by myself. We were sharing a phone because times were tough and we didn't have a whole lot of money. So he had the phone. I had no phone, no way to contact anybody, no support really, because I've kind of pushed him away. Because you don't want your family knowing you're going through something dark. You kind of just keep them at bay. So I proceed to go on the freeway, and I have to keep pulling over, and I'm vomiting, and I'm in excruciating pain until the point where I couldn't get back in the car. And I'm on the side of the road. It's pitch black. I am not at this time really secure in my faith. I had kind of given up on all hope. I was at my breaking point. I had no other way but to sit there and pray and say, Lord, get me to a hospital. I'm gonna die alone right now with no way anyone's gonna know I'm even out here. So I get back in my car, and I'm in a town where I have no idea where I am. And all of a sudden on the side of the road, I see big blue H hospital signs, illuminated, glowing, like, here you go. I see one, okay, perfect. It's in a town in Turlock, so if anyone knows that area, it's one road. And if you blink, you miss it, and you are 40, 50 miles till the next exit. So I get off the first one, and I start seeing multiple signs all throughout, just guiding me. Pulled up to the hospital, found it easy. Got the front row parking lot, pulled in, and within 10 minutes, I was undergoing surgery. I had no idea what I was really in pain about. I thought I was having a heart attack. They were asking who I wanted to call to come be with me before surgery. I didn't have my phone, so therefore I didn't know any numbers. Make it through, I get picked up by my mother. So I laid in bed and took my pills and recovered for a week. I had a post-op appointment. I wasn't feeling well, I had a fever, I had some complications from the surgery. And took a picture of my wounds and told my doctor, something's not right. He says, okay, you need to come in, it's infected. Getting lost getting back to the hospital. My mom's like, okay, I don't see any of these signs you were talking about. My mom's a semi-religious person, and she goes, she even told me you didn't drive your vehicle that night. You were just, merely a vessel.
For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways.
I get to my post-op appointment, and the surgeon had left some gauze inside me. So that's why I had to go back and get everything situated. But if I hadn't had that infection and that complication, I wouldn't have driven back to that hospital to see that there wasn't those signs there. It was a complete affirmation of, I wasn't the one behind the wheel. And, the whole thing kind of restored my faith, and I am here for a divine purpose.
For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him.
I'm living in Sacramento at the time, still struggling, still trying to pay rent on an apartment I can't afford. I'm in a busy complex, and there's 4 units to each complex, and there's probably 50 complexes around me. My normal night, I have to get up and go to work, but about 4 in the morning, yet again, dog starts barking, I hear someone pounding at my door. It's raining, it's in the middle of winter, and I peek out and it's this teenage girl. It's a child, soaking wet, with pajamas on, looking really disheveled, looking concerned. I open the door. She asks me for a cigarette. Meanwhile, there's no signs of smoking outside my house. So I open it and I give her a cigarette, and I'm sitting on the stairs talking with her, and I'm obviously noticing she's not in her right mind. She doesn't even know her name. She doesn't know her age. I asked her where she lived. She didn't know that. Our complex, to say the least, wasn't the best place for this young, intoxicated girl to be knocking on. Meanwhile, I wake up my boyfriend and I'm asking him, we have to do something. We can't just close the door on her. She obviously came to our house for a reason. So my boyfriend and I get her in our minivan and we're driving her around trying to get her to remember where she came from, what house she lives in a certain neighborhood. We drove around for 45 minutes, kind of going in circles. So we quickly realized, all right, let's get her back to the house. Let's call the authorities. This is out of our control. What do? We call PD. They come out. They check with her outside. They take her out. And then they come back in and talk to me and they go, well, why did you let her in your house? And they were kind of upset with me. Like, how dare you jeopardize your family for someone else? And they were like, you shouldn't have done that. You know, we'll handle this. And they reassured me they were going to fix the situation. I had faith. I'm like, okay, let's hand her over, go back to bed. I got to get up early. I got to go to work. 10 minutes maybe went by, and I glance out the window, and there she is across the street, literally 50 feet from where they picked her up. They had dropped her off. So again, it's raining. I'm like, okay, honey, you're going to have to come inside. Let's get you a blanket. Let's figure out what we're going to do with you. So I went ahead and drove her to our nearest emergency room, where there, finally, the doctors and the nurses actually cared about this little girl. They grabbed her and was like, okay, thank you so much for bringing her in. You know, what had happened? And they were kind of doing their normal triage on her while I was sitting there. They were obviously worried that she was on drugs, but from the looks of her age and, you know, she didn't seem like a heroin addict or she was doing so many drugs that she couldn't remember. So someone obviously gave her these. I couldn't really keep up on her. They wouldn't tell me much about her after they admitted her, and they said, we'll reassure you, we promise you that we're going to figure out what has happened to this little girl. But I had made a Facebook post in regards to the situation, how weird it was. It felt like a twilight zone, and I had tagged my local PD department that picked her up. And the sergeant contacted me, and the sergeant came to my home and kind of did a little interview, and they reassured me that everything was going to be handled on their end. And they did want to update me on her situation. And her mother was notified. Her mother had lived in Nevada, a totally different state. Turns out that she was abducted. She was in a sting of sex trafficking and in a situation where she had ran away and trusted the wrong person and got taken advantage of. You know, I don't think if that little girl went to any other person's house, someone would have been diligent enough to go that extra mile, let them in their house, let them in their car, take them to the point where you got to love that little girl like it was your own. They had to know that the importance is not what they look like or what they can do for you, but meanwhile you have to sit there and kind of give up your comfort zone to protect someone else. Changed my life, for sure.
It is no coincidence that Jennifer saw signs that weren't there, leading her to the hospital during a life-threatening moment. It is also no coincidence that a distraught victim of sex trafficking ended up on Jennifer's doorstep, and she was diligent enough to take her to the hospital during her life-threatening moment.
And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose.